I never thought I would be the kind of person who changes everything with one stupid decision. My name is Nathan. I was a final-year student at Westbrook University studying advanced cryptography. On the surface, my life looked completely normal. I went to lectures. I sat in the library. I pretended to care about my future. But the truth is, I was drowning. The pressure of my final year was crushing me from every side. My classmates seemed to know exactly what they were doing. My friend Adrian always had his notes ready, always had his answers finished days early. Me, I could barely keep my eyes open during morning classes. I was exhausted, stressed, and running out of time fast. My final project was due in 6 weeks, and I had not written a single word. I told myself I just needed a little help to get through. One small shortcut. Just this once. I had no idea that one shortcut was about to destroy 2 lives forever. It started on a Tuesday night. I was sitting alone in my tiny apartment, staring at a blank screen. The deadline was getting closer and panic was setting in. I opened my laptop and started searching online for anything related to my project topic, a new method in advanced cryptography. I typed keyword after keyword into search engines. Most results were useless. Then, on a forgotten academic website buried deep in the search results, I found it, a research paper. It was written by a small team at a tech institute in Germany. The paper was old, published years ago in a tiny journal that almost nobody read. It was exactly what I needed. The concepts were perfect. The data was clean. The conclusions were brilliant. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. My heart was beating fast. I knew what I was about to do was wrong, but I also knew I was running out of options. I told myself it was not really stealing. I told myself nobody would ever find it. The paper was from an obscure European institute. It was not popular. It had no views, no citations, no attention. It was sitting in a digital basement where nobody ever looked. I rewrote sections in my own words. I changed the formatting. I moved paragraphs around. I even added a few of my own small notes to make it look original. By the time I was finished, it looked like my own work. I saved the file and closed my laptop. I did not feel proud. I felt sick. But I also felt relieved that the pressure had finally stopped. I had a project. I had data. I had conclusions. I had a way out. I did not think about the consequences. I did not think about the people who had written the original paper. I only thought about passing. That was my first mistake. Take a minute to like this video and subscribe or follow this channel to keep it growing. Also, you can share your story via our email attached to the description of this video, and we can put it out on your behalf. Back to the story. A week later, I walked into Professor Holloway's office to hand in my project. His office was dark and crowded with books and papers stacked everywhere, towering in unsteady piles. Holloway was not an easy man to read. He was tall, thin, and always wore the same gray jacket no matter the weather. His eyes were sharp, like he was always studying something closely. I handed him the folder with both hands, trying to keep them from shaking. He looked at the cover page and nodded once. I stood there awkwardly, waiting for him to say something. He did not say much. He just told me to leave it on his desk and that he would review it carefully over the weekend. I walked out of his office feeling like a heavy weight had been lifted off my chest. The hard part was done. I had submitted it. Now I just had to wait. I told myself that once I got my grade, I could forget the whole thing ever happened. 3 days later, Holloway called me back into his office. I walked in nervous, expecting the worst, but instead he smiled. It was the first time I had ever seen him smile. He picked up my project and held it up like it was something precious. "This is revolutionary work, Nathan," he said, "truly impressive. The depth of this research is beyond what I have seen from any student this year." My stomach flipped. Relief washed over me so fast I almost laughed out loud. He liked it. He actually liked it. I nodded and said thank you, trying to look humble and serious. Inside, I was screaming with relief. I had fooled him. The project was accepted. The pressure was gone. I left his office that day feeling like I had escaped a burning building. I had no idea that Holloway had just seen something very different in my work, something that had nothing to do with giving me a good grade. 2 weeks after handing in my project, I checked my student portal for my grade. My fingers hovered over the mouse. I clicked. The page loaded, and there it was, a fail. I stared at the screen for a full minute, not moving. My brain refused to process what I was reading. Holloway had marked me down. The comment said I had failed to meet core academic requirements. That was it. No explanation, no details, nothing about what I had done wrong. I read the comment 10 times. It made no sense. He had praised the work to my face. He had called it revolutionary, and now he was failing me. I felt angry. I felt confused. I wanted to storm into his office and demand answers, but something small and quiet in the back of my mind told me to wait. Something was not adding up. Why would he praise my work and then fail me? The answer to that question would come sooner than I expected. I spent the next 2 weeks trying to understand what had happened. I went back to Holloway's office 3 times. Each time his door was locked. Each time his assistant told me he was unavailable or traveling. I sent him emails. He never replied. I asked Adrian if he had heard anything. He shrugged and said professors were weird sometimes, but this did not feel weird. It felt deliberate. Why was Holloway avoiding me? I replayed every moment in my head. The smile, the praise, the fail. None of it made sense together. Unless the smile and the praise were not about rewarding me, what if they were about something else entirely? I started to feel a cold, creeping feeling in my chest, like something had been taken from me, and I did not even know it yet. I had no proof of anything. I had no words for what I was feeling. All I had was a growing suspicion that I had walked right into a trap. 2 months passed. I threw myself into other coursework, trying to forget about Holloway and the failed project. One morning, I was sitting in the campus library scrolling through an academic news site when a headline stopped me cold. It read, "Professor Holloway publishes groundbreaking research in advanced cryptography." My blood turned to ice. I clicked on the article. There it was, my project, every concept, every data point, every conclusion. All published in one of the biggest academic journals in the world. And the author listed was one name only, Professor Arthur Holloway. There was no mention of me, not even a footnote, not a single word that suggested anyone else had been involved. I sat in the library chair, unable to breathe. My hands were shaking. The words on the screen blurred together. He had taken it. He had taken everything I had given him and published it as his own. The man I had handed my work to had stolen it right out from under me. I closed my laptop and walked out of the library in a daze. The campus felt different suddenly. The buildings looked colder. The students around me seemed far away, like I was watching them through glass. I kept thinking the same thing over and over. He stole it. He actually stole it. But then another thought hit me, and it was even worse. He had not just stolen my work. He had stolen work. I had copied that research from the German Institute. Now Holloway had copied it from me. We were both thieves. I sat down on a bench outside and put my head in my hands. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go back to Holloway and expose him, but how could I? If I told anyone what he had done, I would have to admit what I had done first. I was trapped. He had taken my secret and turned it into his shield, and I was left holding nothing but guilt and silence. A week after I found the journal article, Holloway appeared on national television. I was sitting alone in my apartment eating dinner when his face suddenly filled my screen. He was being interviewed on a popular science show. The host was clearly impressed. Everyone in the studio was impressed, and Holloway played the part perfectly. He leaned forward with a confident smile and spoke clearly into the microphone. "I worked on this in total isolation for 3 years," he said. "Every line of code, every mathematical proof. It was all me. I did not even have a research assistant." The interviewer nodded and praised his incredible dedication. The audience applauded loudly. I sat there with my fork halfway to my mouth, completely frozen. He had just lied on national television. Not once did he hesitate. Not once did his eyes flicker with doubt. He looked straight at the camera and erased me completely. It was the smoothest, coldest lie I had ever seen anyone tell in my entire life. After that first interview, Holloway was everywhere. Tech magazines, online panels, university conferences. He became a minor celebrity in the academic world. And in every single appearance, he repeated the same story. 3 years of solo work, no help, no students, a lone genius working in silence. I watched every interview. I could not stop myself. Each one made me feel smaller and angrier at the same time. He was building a wall around himself, a fortress made of his own lies. And the higher that wall got, the harder it would be for me to ever reach him. I started saving clips on my phone. Every interview, every quote, every time he said the words, it was all me. I did not know why I was saving them yet. It felt like collecting evidence even though I had no plan to use it. Something inside me told me these recordings mattered. I did not know how, not yet, but I kept saving them anyway, one by one. For weeks I fought with myself. Part of me wanted to expose Holloway. I wanted to walk into the university board and tell them everything. But every time I got close to doing it, the other part of me stopped me cold, because exposing him meant exposing myself. If I told the truth about what Holloway had done, I would have to tell the truth about what I had done first. I had copied that research. I had passed it off as my own. The university could expel me. My degree would be worthless. Everything I had worked for would be gone, so I stayed quiet. I went to class. I smiled when people talked to me. But inside, I was drowning in two feelings at once: fury at Holloway for stealing from me and guilt for stealing in the first place. I was trapped between two lies, one I told, one he told, and both of them were slowly eating me alive from the inside out. Then something happened that I did not expect. I was walking across campus one afternoon when Adrian stopped me. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. He pulled me aside and spoke in a low voice. "Have you seen the news today?" he asked. I shook my head. He pulled out his phone and showed me an article. A legal team representing a tech institute in Germany had begun looking into Holloway's published research. They had noticed similarities between his paper and work their institute had done years earlier. They were investigating. My heart dropped into my stomach. The original authors were paying attention. The same paper I had copied from was now being compared to Holloway's publication. If they dug deep enough, they would find the connection. And when they did, the trail would not stop at Holloway. It would lead straight back to me. The walls of my small, quiet life were beginning to crack, and I could hear them breaking. 3 weeks after the investigation began, the news hit every major outlet. The German Institute had not just investigated. They had filed a lawsuit, a massive international lawsuit for intellectual property theft and fraud. The legal team behind it was powerful and expensive, with years of experience handling cases exactly like this one. They had the original research. They had the timestamps. They had proof that their work had existed years before Holloway claimed to have created it. The case was completely airtight. I read every article I could find about it. Each one used words like devastating and career-ending. Campus buzzed with gossip about the whole situation. Students whispered in hallways between classes. Professors looked uncomfortable whenever Holloway's name came up in conversation. I walked through the university like a ghost during those days. Nobody knew I was connected to any of this. Nobody knew that the lawsuit was not just about Holloway. It was about a chain of theft that started with me in my small apartment on a Tuesday night, staring at a blank screen. The news spread fast across the entire campus. Within days, every student at Westbrook knew about the lawsuit against Holloway. Adrian kept sending me updates on his phone, not knowing he was talking to the one person most affected by all of it. Other students made jokes in the hallways. Some said Holloway deserved everything coming his way. Others said the Germans were being too harsh. I listened to all of it and said nothing. I could not join the conversation. I could not laugh along. Every comment felt like a knife cutting closer to my secret. I started avoiding the library, the cafeteria, anywhere people gathered and talked freely. I walked to my classes through side doors. I kept my head down at all times. The tension was unbearable. Every single day felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. I knew the explosion was coming. I just did not know exactly when or how close it would land to me. All I could do was wait and try not to fall apart before it happened. It happened on a Thursday. I was leaving my last lecture of the day when my phone buzzed. A message from Holloway's office. "Come see me immediately, it is urgent." My stomach dropped. I had not heard from him in months. Not one email, not one call. Now suddenly it was urgent. I walked to his office slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I knocked, his voice came from inside, sharp and desperate. "Get in, close the door." I stepped inside. The office looked different. Papers were scattered everywhere. His desk was covered in legal documents. And Holloway himself looked nothing like the confident man I had seen on television. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He looked like a man who had just watched his entire world catch fire. He stared at me with wide, frightened eyes. Something had changed. The power he once held over me was cracking apart right in front of my face. "Sit down," he said, his voice cracking. I sat. He paced back and forth behind his desk like a caged animal. Then he stopped and looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes was pure fear. "The Germans are going to bury me," he whispered. "They have everything, original files, timestamps, witnesses. I have nothing to defend myself with." He paused. Then he leaned forward and his expression shifted. The fear turned into something desperate and ugly. "But you can help me," he said. "You have to tell them. Tell them you gave me the data. Tell them you are the one who found the paper and brought it to me. If you do that, you take the heat. They might go easy on you, but if you do not, I am finished." He was asking me to destroy myself to save him. The man who had stolen from me was now asking me to hand him a shield made out of my own life. I sat in that chair for a long time, saying nothing. Holloway watched me, waiting. His eyes were searching my face for a sign that I would do what he asked. For a moment, part of me almost said yes. He was my professor. He was supposed to be the authority. Old habits are hard to break. But then I remembered something. All those nights I had spent alone, watching his interviews, feeling invisible. All those clips I had saved on my phone, one by one, interview after interview. I reached into my pocket slowly. Holloway's eyes followed my hand. I pulled out my phone, opened it, and pressed play on a video. His own voice filled the room, clear, confident, honest-sounding. The interviewer asked, "Did any students assist you with the data collection?" And Holloway, with his perfect smile, replied, "Absolutely not. No one else even saw the manuscript until it was finished. It is 100% my intellectual property." The room went silent. I let the clip finish. Then I looked up at him. His face had gone completely white. His mouth was open, but no words came out. I stood up from the chair and spoke clearly, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I cannot help you, Professor," I said. "According to your own words, I had nothing to do with this project. If I go to them and tell them I gave you the data, you will be admitting that you lied to the journals, the media, and the university board." I paused and let that sink in. "And if I stay quiet, you are the only one on the hook. You built this wall around yourself. You told the whole world it was yours and yours alone. Now you have to live inside that wall." I walked toward the door. My hand was shaking when I touched the handle, but I did not look back. For the first time in months, I could breathe again. What happened next moved fast. Within days, the university launched its own internal investigation. They reviewed Holloway's record, his claims, his interviews. They compared everything to the German Institute's original files. The evidence was overwhelming. Holloway had no defense. He could not blame a student without contradicting every interview he had ever given. He could not claim ignorance without admitting he had knowingly published stolen work. The university board made their decision quickly. Holloway was stripped of his tenure. His teaching position was taken away. The journal that had published his paper retracted the article immediately. Then came the lawsuit. The German Institute sued for millions. The case was clear. Holloway had committed fraud on an international scale. His name, which had been rising for months, now meant something completely different. Across campus, people talked about it like watching a building collapse in slow motion. I watched from a distance, saying nothing, feeling nothing but a strange, hollow silence inside my chest. After everything fell apart for Holloway, I expected to feel happy. I expected relief. But instead, I felt empty. I sat in my apartment for days, barely eating, barely sleeping. I kept thinking about what had happened, not just to him, but to me. I had started all of this. Not Holloway, me. I was the one who opened that laptop on a Tuesday night and made the choice to copy someone else's work. Everything that followed, the praise, the theft, the lawsuit, the collapse, it all started with one lazy, desperate decision I had made months ago. Holloway was a thief, but so was I. The only difference was that his theft was public and mine was still hidden. I looked at myself in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the person staring back. I had spent so long blaming him that I had forgotten to face what I had done. The guilt hit me all at once, like a wave I had been running from finally catching up. It was a cold morning when I saw him. I was walking through the main campus gate, hands buried in my jacket pockets, when I spotted a figure near the parking lot. It was Holloway. He was loading boxes into the back of a worn-out car. His gray jacket hung loosely on his shoulders like it belonged to someone bigger. He looked older, thinner. His face carried lines I had never noticed before. There was no confidence in the way he moved, no arrogance. He was just a tired man packing up the last pieces of a life he had built and then destroyed. I almost walked past him. I almost pretended I did not see him, but something made me stop. My feet stayed planted on the ground. I stood there watching him for a moment. He had not seen me yet. The wind blew between us, and for a second the campus was completely quiet. Then he turned and our eyes met. He stared at me for a long time. I expected anger. I expected hatred. And at first, that is exactly what I saw in his eyes. A dark, burning look that said everything his mouth could not. But then something shifted. His shoulders dropped. The tension left his body all at once, like someone had cut a string holding him up. He looked down at the ground and let out a long, slow breath. "You knew," he whispered. His voice was barely audible. He looked back up at me, and this time there was no anger, just exhaustion. "You knew it was not really yours either." The words hung in the air between us. He was right. I did know. I had known from the very beginning. We were both standing on the same broken ground. Two people who had stolen something and then watched it destroy us both in different ways. The silence between us said more than any words could have. I could have walked away. I could have left him there with his boxes and his broken career and felt nothing. Part of me wanted to, but I looked at the man standing in front of me and I did not see a villain anymore. I saw a person who had lost everything, a person who had made a terrible choice just like I had and paid a price far heavier than mine. I reached into my bag slowly. Holloway watched my hand, unsure of what was coming. I pulled out a folder. Inside were the original source materials, the full bibliography from the German paper I had copied all those months ago. I held it out to him. "This is the original bibliography, Professor," I said quietly. "Use it to settle with the Germans. If you stop lying and give them what they need, they might go easier on you." He took the folder with trembling hands. "You are helping me?" he asked, stunned. I looked at him and said, "I am forgiving you, because I was wrong too." I did not hear from Holloway again after that morning, but Adrian told me later that he had used the sources to negotiate a settlement with the German Institute. He stayed out of prison, but his career was over. He would never teach again. He would never publish again. His name in the academic world was finished forever. As for me, I made a decision. I went back to the university. I enrolled for another year. And this time when I sat down to work on my final project, I started from scratch. Every word was mine. Every idea came from my own mind. Every late night in the library I spent actually studying, actually thinking, actually building something real. It was harder than copying had ever been. It took longer. It hurt more. But when I finished and handed it in, I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Pride. Real pride. I graduated with honors that summer. And for the first time, I knew that what I had earned was truly my own. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel so it would grow.